Okay, we have 20 minutes left for discussion.
Or a little bit less, yes.
So, but can you not start answering immediately after the person has asked the question? So we're going to take 2 or 3 questions. So the lady first, then you, and then the gentleman back.
Yes,
Please keep it short so we can get a few more.
My question is, this logic of superego that you described, is a form of circularity. It's the automatism of death drive. And as Freud says, the masochism of ego and sadism of superego go hand in hand. But of course, as you know, Deleuze, argues that you don't find this masochism and sadism in the same psyche. But my question is, do you see this death drive as being caught, within the temporality of political theology? Because this circularity, is very much like a Benjaminian, empty, homogeneous time. And do you think that perhaps we need a new theological structure, a sort of non-Schmittian political theology, maybe? Do you see this in terms of temporality at all?
Okay, thank you. The gentleman here.
To comment on one question, what I admire from yourself, Žižek, it's Žižek against Žižek in this Jacana Millerian way of reading Lacan against Lacan. Because 7 years ago or 10 years ago, you were talking about reflexive racism, and then reflexive racism, and then you are criticizing yourself, but finding a new space, the space of how to get rid of, how to not be caught in this circle of guilty. And the other thing that I read in your conference is that you are almost doing the same thing that Lacan. You are exploring or doing a cognitive mapping of theology, like reading the other. You are reading the space of the other in theology. It's like you are trying to read the variations, like Levi-Strauss, and to identify, to make a cognitive mapping of the big other, but to grasp the structure, the rupture, and inconsistencies of the other, in impasses, objects, jouissance gaze. Is this the case, that what you're doing, like cognitive mapping of the big other? That's one question, and the other...
No, sorry, just one question. Thank you. You just asked Žižek, what? And Žižek will say, why are you accusing me of being Žižek since I am Žižek? So, that's at the back. Thank you.
Žižek, a year ago you did an interview in which you attacked Bobovatian's new synthesis of communism that's not doing the work. Raymond Lott challenged you to a debate in New York. You accepted. You accepted to do that debate. Now, are you going to do it or not? We have an auditorium of 800 seats waiting for you in New York. I think the reason you're backing out...
Thank you very much. I do fully understand, the situation. Let's answer the first 2 questions. That is it.
No. Look, on Monday you did a riff against false binaries. Okay. The World War I, you did Semitism and anti-Semitism and Zionism, and then you evoked the spirit of the deserters in no man's land in World War I. Okay, and you said that was the communist spirit. Okay, but look, do you think the polarization between Golden Dawn and Syriza in Greece, or between Obama and the Tea Party in the United States, is any less a false polarization than what Lenin faced in a much more titanic struggle where millions of people are shooting each other, workers called on by the left to go and fight each other and shoot each other down. Lenin jumped into the abyss. It was not some gradual step-by-step thing. He jumped into the abyss and says, this is the communist spirit. That's what you need to do. To hell with Obama. He's the commander-in-chief of American imperialism.
We take the point, but we're not discussing communism today. We're discussing all sorts of other things. And we have discussed communism so many times, so let's get on with it.
No, but wait a minute. I would nonetheless like to... First, that debate, it was simply that I didn't have any other talks this spring in New York. I was ill and so on. I will do it, but you know what worries me a little bit? Because I know Raymond, I talked with some others. I also want to control the conditions of that debate. I don't want to step with 800 people and to the stage event, which is obviously organized to, I don't know, as a kind of a triumph. And I want to debate with him on equal terms, which means I don't want to enter an event. I want to know how that event was organized, who was called, who was invited, and so on and so on. Sorry, I'm not ready to do an event like that. Point two, why do you think, no, sorry. Point two, I didn't mean this. Point two, why do you think that debate is so mega crucial or whatever? I have here, with all my sympathy, I wrote an introduction to the book by Avakian, you maybe remember, and so on. But sorry, I will tell you something of a common sense now. The way they built his cult of personality, the way they celebrate it. I'm sorry, I read his text. He is not at the level of that. He is not a genius he pretends to be.
Well, then come and say it.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
No, but nonetheless, to talk about Obama and so on. But you see, that's the problem. Of course, I agree with you. We should exit the false binaries and so on. But all I'm saying about Obama, and I have no illusions about him, that with universal healthcare, he touched a point which is a disturbing point. And we should prolong that debate. Because I claim that in American ideological constellation, obviously universal healthcare touches something which is traumatic for it. And that's the way you enter the public space. Otherwise, you are an elitist party of 1,000 people waiting for the big revolution. I'm not saying we should simply accept Obama's terms of the debate. But you should grab something. As to Syriza, listen, the fact is that Tsipras is demonized all around Europe, which means I don't care if he's sincere or not, but that's an opening. And as to Lenin, oh my God, I can tell you stories there. Yes, Lenin jumped into the abyss, but you know that then in the early 20s, do you follow Lenin there? He said, we are such a backward country, forget communism, all we can do now is, our duty is to bring, he was very Eurocentric, Western civilization into Russia, and his preferred company were big capitalists. At some point he even said, we should learn from big capitalists, our main enemy are small bourgeois with that. So Lenin, read him. It's extremely interesting reading Lenin's and some who are definitely...
Okay, now some proper theory.
No, but wait a minute. Okay, sorry. Let me go to, the first one. You know...
You also, of course, had Trotsky to do the dirty work for him.
Yeah, but no, wait a minute. You know what's for me the problem with Trotsky? I mean, I'm there almost, I read detailed books. You know what interests me? Trotsky from 24 till 1930. And it's a model of how to screw things up, frankly. I mean, he was first so in love with himself. He simply believed in his charisma, and he will show himself in front of people. And he was really, sorry to use for the 20th time that metaphor. Trotsky was like, already in 24 he was, that stupid metaphor that I always use, a cat above the precipice, he just didn't notice it. I mean, it was a model of how not to do it. Not to mention the point that Trotsky is cheating a little bit, in the sense that if you look at Trotsky's text in the early 20s, do you really think that Trotsky had a clear alternative? The conflict was Stalin, I know at that point what is a right-winger, Stalin was with Bukharin. Okay, but let's not lose time on this, I admit it. Let's go to theory. Okay, when you mentioned superego, death drive, sadomasochism, and so on. First, I would distinguish here things. I think that this circularity of, this is a good question, namely, I would not put a sign of equation between superego and death drive. I here follow Deleuze and even Lacan. Here I think Lacan, I don't think he reduces death drive to superego. I think that there is a certain repetitive dynamics of death drive which absolutely shouldn't be reduced to superego. As to what you said, about sadism, masochism, Deleuze's contribution, and I'm here on Deleuze's side, I must say, is that they are not a symmetrical couple. He is opposed to the term sadomasochism. Again, okay, let's not go into detail. The point is, I think, how to not rehabilitate, how to conceptualize death drive outside outside not only of superego, but even outside of terms of masochism and so on and so on. I think this is crucial, and what I try to do it, for example, even in philosophical terms, linking it to superego and so on and so on. I think that death drive, basically for me, has absolutely nothing. The key for me is what I always repeat, that if you really read closely even Freud, you see that death drive, if anything, is Freudian name for immortality. Death drive is not all that bullshit, ooh, I want to disappear, whatever. No, death drive is something which exists beyond life and death. Which is why I always repeat, if you want to learn about death drive, read, I'm sorry to tell you this obscenity, read Stephen King horror novels about the undead. The undead are pure figure of death drive. The undead who are not alive, but paradoxically also not dead, who are the living dead. That's the death drive. Something that goes on and on and on. And if anything, I think the expression political of death drive is for me, you know, when, let's say, revolution is losing, but then somebody says, no, even like Schwarzenegger, sorry, disgusting movie, Terminator, you know, when he says, but I will be back, you know, this eternal return, undeadness. This is death drive. Death drive is hope, and so on. Okay, sorry. Then the last one, the second one about that, no, also, yes, Lenin and, no, sorry, what was the other one? Lenin and...
Žižek against Žižek.
Yeah, but I didn't quite... sorry, what was the more precise, you see, when you asked me?
Can you summarize in one sentence?
Yeah. Yeah, first, about this political theology, you know, let me nonetheless make this absolutely clear. I'm a materialist, unconditionally. It's not that I'm playing jokes when I write about Christianity and so on, but for me, the message of Christianity is precisely what dies on the cross. I repeat it, it's not Jesus Christ, it's, as Hegel knew it, it's God of beyond. What dies on the cross is any transcendent guarantee. What dies on the cross is the idea there is a higher power which is controlling us and so on. And this is how I read Holy Spirit. In Christianity, what happens after Jesus Christ's death, it's no, oh, he went away, but don't worry too much, he will come back. No, nothing will come back. I read literally those lines in I don't know which New Testament text, where Jesus Christ said when they asked him, how will we know that you come back? You know, when there is love among two of you, I am here. Nothing will happen. The whole point of Christianity is to see in this utter defeat of Christ's death already a chance for freedom. You know, my syllogism of Christianity would give me this one. Let's say you are totally at a loss. You say, God died on the cross, what can I do now? I have no guidance. I don't know what to do. You know what's the Christian answer? Not be patient, Father is up there. No, the Christian answer is, but do you know what you said now? I'm alone, I don't... This is freedom, and this is divine gift for you. It's freedom. You know, nothing changes. It's not that God comes, and so it's only in this way that I speak about Christianity. As to the yes, sorry. When you mentioned Benjamin, no, why and Schmidt, I think it's absolutely crucial to avoid all problems, nonetheless to strictly distinguish what Benjamin called divine violence from all that Schmidt topic, you know, of... Yeah, that's...
Talking about temporality.
Yeah.
Temporality of political theology as opposed to a rupture that would be introduced.
Okay, here we would have to go more into being more precise, because for me the basic paradox of temporality is, and Freudian temporality begins like this, is retroactivity. You know, it's how the past itself, of course, not in a naive mystical sense, but the symbolic weight of the past can be constantly changed. And for me, the key point is how to read it. The only way to read it is if you, that's what I always repeat, that's why I'm so fascinated by quantum physics, because it's the first model that I see of an open ontology, open in a more radical sense, that simply the work of creation is not finished, which is why, to give you an indication of what I mean, recently this came to me, you know, this idea, you know, this polemics between Niels Bohr and Einstein. You know, when Einstein said, God doesn't cheat, like we should rely on some basic laws of nature and so on. But I think that here enters the most beautiful ontological consequence part of quantum physics, which is how you can ontologically cheat, you know, in the sense that you do something, but before it's registered, you can profit from it. And then, in other words, to put it like this, if you take into account that we have, after the wave function collapse, the constituted reality, but prior to it, this quantum virtual reality, what quantum physics allows for, and if we claim that God is the one who sees it all, the way it is, then the materialist, ironically of course, answer to Einstein would have been that the lesson of quantum physics is, yes, God does not cheat, but God is constantly cheated. You know, God doesn't see what happens just beneath the surface. God is constantly ontologically cheated, and so on. So, nonetheless, so you know why? Because, no, let me just, this is an important political point. Often I'm attacked, the last time by Richard Bernstein in a book on violence, that I celebrate some brutal violence and so on. You know what annoys me? And here I'm probably solidary with you. You know what annoys me with these secretly liberal pseudo-leftist friends of Benjamin? Benjamin is today incorporated, but a kind of aseptic Benjamin. You know, they all look how to read his notion of divine violence, and they want to make a sublime event, nobody is hurt. I'm sorry, read Benjamin. Whatever he means, we can debate about it by divine violence, but he means violence, where people are killed, extreme brutality, and so on. And of course, this all started with Homi Bhabha, I think. What Homi Bhabha did with a similar thing with Fanon, you know, how to make an aseptic, politically correct Fanon, not too violent, and so on. And again, it's the same. Even Judith Butler is not clear here. I think she wrote somewhere that there is a paradox of some symbolic shift where no one is hurt, no physical violence. That's how she tries to reread divine violence. And the way to squeeze out of the harsh revolutionary commitment of Benjamin is incredible. Like in his polemics against me, Simon Critchley tries to totally, brutally reinscribes Benjamin's divine violence into liberal coordinates. He reads it as, when there is no other way, you have to apply a little bit of violence. But this is the standard liberal defense, you know, like, try not to be violent, but when there is no other way, do it. But in this way, for him, violence is a problematic instrument which we should apply when there is no other way. But wait a minute, Benjamin says exactly the opposite. He says divine violence is an instrument without an end. The whole point of divine violence is that it's not, you know, like we are in a revolutionary process, we have there some soldiers of the enemy, oh my God, maybe we will have to shoot them or whatever. No, it's totally wrong. This is not Benjamin. It's incredibly how watered down, how, like, I think Benjamin and Fanon would have been two thinkers who need rehabilitation today in what they originally were, against this. No, these political guys, you know, they want some kind of a revolution where no one will suffer, somehow there will be a big shift, and this shift will be so radical that nothing will in reality happen, you know, just some big... we have to, again, to return to Benjamin here.
Okay. Shall we take another couple of questions? Oh, it's 4 o'clock.
It's 4 o'clock. One question.
One question.
Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha.
The gentleman at the back has been asking for some time now. Can you keep it short, please?
Very short, quite specific. You said the way out of the kind of superego guilt trap was through crowd formation.
No, the false way out. I'm not for it.
Okay.
Oh my God, I'm not crazy. Yeah.
Because you gave this example of nationalism, and I was asking, is there a kind of non-negative way?
No. Because the problem with nationalism, what shocked me when I met those racists, brutals, probably those guys that I met in Belgrade once were even doing the weekend trips to Bosnia to do some killing. What shocked me is how innocent they sounded. No, it's as if you become a nationalist to be, and I already told this story, it may interest you. What shocked me is how nicely they, with their practice, refuted the standard liberal theory that these new ethnic fundamentalists are primitive guys who are afraid of the new freedoms of our developed capitalist world, and they are afraid of this self-responsibility and they escape back into some primitive ethnic identity. No! The way they described to me their situation was wonderful. On the contrary, they experienced the politically correct, permissive, developed society as too oppressive. In vulgar sense. They told me, what society is this? I cannot smoke in public. I cannot beat my wife. I cannot rape a girl. It's horrible. Everything is regulated. I go to Bosnia, I can do whatever I want, So it's the opposite. It's for them, it's this. And this, again, brings me back to that Dostoevsky, eternal Dostoevsky point, That the truth of our society is if, as Lacan turned it around, if there is no God, then everything is prohibited. In the sense that, can you imagine anything more in detail regulated than a politically correct hedonist community? Okay, you can do whatever you want, sexual practices, but, healthy sex, jogging, and so on and so on. It's a totally regulated life. The truth of our permissivity, I already quoted it. When I flew across the Atlantic, I read in Hemispheres United magazine, praising sex and healthy sex. And they claim, if you often make love, it will turn your muscles and it's good for heart circulation. They even went to, if you give deep French kisses, your muscles here will be firmer, and when old, you will not be dripping saliva and so on. I mean, this is horrible. This is horrible, this healthy sex, Sex must be unhealthy. You must be feeling terribly guilty. The world should fall apart at the horrors that I'm doing.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, but this is not the crowd in the Freudian sense. Here I'm a quite naive Marxist leftist and claim what Freud is describing in his crowd formation, this immersion into unity and so on and so on. There are crowds and crowds. Because let's be very specific. Freud gives maybe that's how I would begin with it. Remember that Freud gives two examples of artificial crowds. Church and the army, and he treats them as the same. Well, I think there is a crucial opposition there. Church is a totally different type, hierarchic, organized. Army is an egalitarian crowd. I think you have class struggle there. I'm for the army against the church, but that's it.
On Friday, the